Alright, I'm Eric Clymore and I'm losing my mind. And while I lose my mind, I am tying up a fly that has been super good to me. And I don't mean like I've had a few productive trips, like consistently since I've started keeping it in the rotation. It just consistently works. And it helps that I don't fish many like super obnoxious attractors. But still, I mean, like I said, it's just worked really well for me, so figured I would tie it. And this fly I have termed the Cdc Gasolina because it's CDC on a Gasolina Perdigon, that is. So I have a number 16 Fasna F-444 in the vise with a 3.5 millimeter bead. I have tied in what would usually be CDL, just standard CDL tailing fibers, but since the current saddle I've got is pretty light, I wanted to just err on the side of caution and use something a bit darker, so I'm using CDL, but this is from a hen cape, and this is also brown olive. And lastly, the body material, not lastly, but the body material is Cdc Perdigon thread in brown olive pearl. And of all the materials I've tried, this has become my favorite for the well, I won't get into the weeds of the Gasolina, but of all the colors, like the various materials that kind of carry that same color scheme, this has been my favorite of the ones I've tried. So I've tied in the tinsel. Obviously I marked my orange thread black just to keep the dark body color, and next I am going to add a thorax, which would usually be Jan Simon Peacock Black Dubbing, the fine version. Once you use that, you'll never use his standard. I don't know why he still makes it. I think he still does. But because I'm losing my mind, I can't find it despite just setting it out in preparation. So instead, I am using a UV Hares ear blend. And I would have already said it's going to look fine just because it's going to match the CDC collar, but I just tied a version, and spoiler alert, it looks fine. I would happily fish this in the place of a black thorax. So I've coated the abdomen in resin, but like a thin coat. This is purely functional resin. This isn't like, I'm not trying to gloss it up, and it's not a art project. This is just to A, protect the tinsel, and B, give the thorax a little extra resistance to sliding down the hook shank after a fish or three. And then on top of that, I have crossed over the thorax with my thread, and well, I take my thread and I jump it over the thorax and then make half a turn and then bring the thread back and pull the whole thorax or that side towards the bead. Then I make a wrap, and then I do the same thing on the opposite side. And I only do one on each side. And as you can see, I've already done it, even with fluorescent orange thread against a dark hare's ear body, or I mean, thorax. You're not picking it up. I used to say, like, I do it every time unless I'm using a contrasting thread, but I've gotten so comfortable with it that even something like this, I've got no problem racing my thread through it. So the CDC collar is actually a brand new product, actually, like the thread, from Pulling Mill, and I was reluctant to tie soft tackles with it at first. I was over the moon about how much it was going to help tying buggers, but some of my initial soft tackles were CDC soft tackles were tied with dubbing, and I literally was dubbing it on and just wrapping a collar, and they produced just fine, but they looked like garbage. And so that's what I thought about when I thought about using this as a collar. But against my I was going to say better judgment, but my better judgment was wrong. Against my past experiences, I went ahead and tried it, and applying it in a split thread and then like teasing it out before you wrap it, it looks, I mean, it'd be hard to pick a dub versus feather fly apart. So I almost always put too much in the thread, which, I mean, is practically intentional, just because I know I'm going to lose some when I get it all spun up. So I'm factoring that into the loop and do just that. I kind of clean any loose fibers out and set them down softly on my desk and hope that I do the same thing in the same spot on the next fly, because if I do, after a dozen flies, I've got one more fly, which might not sound like much because it's not. But I hate waste. Like, yes, partly I'm a hoarder. Yes, partly I'm cheap. But above both of those, I genuinely just hate waste. It's just wasteful. Therefore, I try to use as much as I possibly can of a product. So I just finished the fly with just a small pinch of the dark hare's ear again, just to protect the thread wraps that are holding in the CDC. And after that, I gave it a small hot spot and coated it in resin, just because I want to make sure it stays together. And yeah, that's it. The only other thing to say is, for whatever reason, I always fish this with an oversized bead. I've got one other fly like that it worked in the beginning, therefore it must be attached to a bowling ball or else it won't work. Pretty straightforward. So, hope you enjoyed it. Definitely give that CDC dubbing a try. I was already over the moon about having it domestically, but now that it's opening up easier soft tackles, like, I'm just gonna have to send a truck to Connecticut or New Hampshire and just load them up, because I'm gonna be using this stuff as if it is something else that I use a lot, but like a lot. Dude, it's late. I just wanted to redo this. I did it yesterday and it wasn't good, and this one is marginally less not good. So I'm going to end on that note and just say stay tuned for the next slide, which is one of my many graphics that I just keep building and getting weirdly hyper focused on, yet do nothing with. So I'm just gonna start using them on these videos, because at least I feel like I did them for something other than purely for my enjoyment. And it will have all the information, like my website and all the information. It'll have my website and my Instagram handle, which both of those you can check out for much more content or product, etc. And yeah, I hope, well, I already said I hope you enjoyed it, so I have nothing more to say. Nothing more to add to this video. At this point, I'm only taking away. I'm not a taker. Bye.